Hello, fellow thinkers. Welcome back to the eighth episode of the Independent Minds podcast. Today, we will discuss Thomas Hobbes, his ideas, and also I will talk about kind of monarchy and the idea of monarchy. And, well, uh, he was, as we all know, the father of authoritarian divine right theory, and he was very influential. And yeah, so my co-host today is Brandon Seth. How are you, Brandon?
I'm great. How are you, Nur?
I'm fine. So are you excited for what we are about to discuss together?
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to know. So,
So
what
what do you know about him? What are some basic information that you could give to
I
us?
know he wrote the book Leviathan,
Yes. And
and he thought that human beings existed in like a natural state of war against each other, like a
yes.
big struggle, and the way that humans should be governed is through like not totalitarianism, but like absolute monarchy, which was the best way to like stop that state of war.
So yeah, he wanted basically like a really strong central authoritarian figure that would stop any kind of conflict from happening ever. And this was kind of this wasn't so controversial for his time. As we know, there were many political figures such as kings and so on and so forth, like mostly kings. Instead of So in this time period during the 17th to 18th centuries, we see the power of these small nobles declining. They started to give all power to the king or the queen. This led to, like, these kings and queens ruling over this vast areas of, like, or countries without really any check, other than any check to their power, to be honest, to be more exact. And this led to so many controversial figures who went on to abuse their power. But his theory was especially very important in validating their rule.
So what was his theory? Explain that to me.
So his theory is that basically there should be, uh, I just explained, there should be absolute monarchy. That although he knows that it will likely terrorize some people, it's necessary for the benefit of all, because otherwise there is just no order and people will just like kill each other and there will be no right. So he keeps talking about chaos in his books. I mean, that's what I like came across when I read his books and researched about him. He talks about chaos like nonstop. You know how Nietzsche kept talking about like nihilism?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the same for him.
Oh.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. So we know that he was a member of the clergy, at least his family was. So would you like to explain more about that, Brandon?
yeah. So obviously like everybody at that time was Christian in Europe or in Western Europe at least. But like he was a member of the clergy. He like was educated on theology and
Mm-hmm.
he believed in like divine right, which is
Yeah.
the idea that like the right of a ruler comes like directly from God basically.
Yeah, that divine right will come across like so often when we read about him, Thomas Hobbes. So his I his one other idea that he had was regarding like religion being enforced kind of uh by this main public figure, or in part by the monarchy, because he believed that religion would simply create more, I guess, unity in the country. That's what was necessary. So he kind of started to use it as well, which I think is very smart, at least for his time. You get what I mean? Because back then, religion was like the unifying figure, and yeah, he was one of the first people to point out how religion could be unifying, but at the same time really divisive if used, wrongly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you notice that like both him and John Locke were both from the same country,
Yeah.
and yet they have so radically different philosophies. Radically
Mm-hmm.
different. Like, sorry, Thomas Hobbes is so like authoritarian and monarchist, like absolute monarchy. And then John Locke is so like libertarian and like limited monarchy. And when you think about the reason why, it's pretty interesting. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So Thomas Hobbes was in Paris when the English Civil War broke out. In Paris, he saw many royalists and nobles and many important people uh, who supported the royalist cause. And he got to evaluate their ideas. And then at the end of the English Civil War, which was really shocking to him that the royalists would lose, uh, he saw the king get his head chopped off, which was really a big, like a really great event back then. It was really unusual for the people to successfully rebel and at the end just abolish like the king. So it was really interesting to for him, and he this made him change his whole perspective. He started to see this rebellion as an act of, uh not only rebellion but also an insult, because he thought that chaos would only rise from this. And in a way, his his thesis on how power would be eventually taken back, like power would eventually be focused on a central. Sorry, we cut out. We are back now. So Oliver Cromwell was again a very important authoritarian figure, and he was uh he was really he was really important to the way the British government works even right now, because they kind of experimented with him about how one person, even though like not an absolute like a monarchist, but they saw that one person should not get powerful, so he was very important in that regard.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Nur, so like Thomas Hobbes, what's the number one thing that he like what's the number one way he's affected society today, do you think?
So one very important thing is he contributed to the idea of a social contract, and he also wrote about how revolutions would just start and then die out as like the people. So he came up kind of with like an earlier cycle of a revolution. So the revolution would start here, like the people, the oppressed rise up against the oppressors, and it just like comes back, and at the end the oppressed actually become the oppressors, at least their
Oh,
leaders do. So yeah, and this his idea of social contract was kind of different. He said that the government would, in fact, so you give up civil kind some of your liberties, and like so much of your privacy and your freedoms in order to get security and prevent chaos.
oh, and
But
that
this is not like the fascist kind of idea of, oh, give me your powers and I'll just protect you. No, this is more like, this is not at a national level, but it's more individualistic instead of like, so in fascism people almost mistake that all the time. Like people say that it's like people say that fascists just want to take away all your liberties for no reason. No, they want to take away for security, but at the same time, they provide the idea that the state would just contribute everything that you need to your life. So yeah, that's how it's different. Yeah, in a way, you're in when he wrote the Leviathan, which wasn't like a political manifesto or anything. It was simply a tale. But this tale proved to be so, yeah, it taught so many things about how a central authoritarian figure was needed. So yeah, in the end, what seems to be the case is that he also, his main biggest contribution, I would say, was his piece Leviathan. Yeah, and which taught us a lot about authoritarianism and so on and so forth.
that's really insightful about like I mean, it's crazy. There's probably like an unlimited amount of ways we, like sitting here today, have been affected by the publication of Leviathan, right?
Yeah, well, he, yeah, the Leviathan, when you actually read it, it's kind of hard to understand. But if you could see, like, behind it, there's like the message of why, the classes of people should, like, so there should be like a main hierarchy that should be obeyed by all and should not be questioned, which means that in the end, they're like, the kings are at the top. They're not to be questioned, because if they are questioned in the end, it just, there's just chaos. So yeah, that was his idea about like how to govern. He wanted there to be such like a wanted there to be no chaos, and for that I think he just gave like too much power to the king. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point.
um so okay, one I have one controversial idea, kind of, that my yeah, one of my teachers taught me. So he said that, like, what about in America, like the central figure that Hobbes talks about. So remember how Hobbes kept talking about like there should be a central figure. We have that in America, don't we? We have the president, right? But in Britain, they seem to have the figure of the queen, and as you know, recently Prince Philip, who passed away, as their national figure. They had that for a long time. The prime minister doesn't do much. They don't have like a power to do anything. They could sign some, like, actions, but no, their job is to strictly enforce. In America, they could do executive orders and so on and so forth. Anyways, so what he said was that he said that in it was better in Britain because that way the monarchy there did not have any power, so the monarchy did not take any action. So this would mean that there is a national figure, but that national figure doesn't actually do like any laws. And which means that in the end, like the legislative body does all the work, but so you just get rid of all your risks with like a leader. So for example, if you have a bad president, that president could lead us to like a civil war, right? But with a prince or like a queen, they're just silent. They're just over there.
And you minimize the risk of having, like, let's say if you have one person, you're kind
Yeah.
of taking a big risk, right?
And you take that risk every 4 years, don't you? But if you have a monarch, you just take that risk once in a lifetime.
Yeah, but the thing is, if the monarch of England does something crazy, it's gonna look bad, but it's not gonna look as bad as if like the dictator of England did something crazy.
Not
Because
only that, but like the monarch doesn't have any political power.
exactly, the real political power is spread amongst the parliament, but each of the parliament members is kind of diluted by the rest of them, so that if anybody does anything crazy, it's not like a huge blow to Britain as like a power, you know?
Exactly.
And I think that's like
Exactly.
a really good like feature of a system. Like we kind of have that with our like Senate and House of Representatives, but the difference between our system and Britain is that our president has a lot more power than their prime minister, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, but like our president could do like so many things. And for example, let's say, I mean, I don't want to get political here, but let's say like one leader there is like bad. And if he gets elected, he could ruin the whole country. And he has this power for 4 years, right? And he has the political power to do literally anything, likely. But if let's say a British monarch starts to reign and they just they can't do anything first of all because they don't have any political power, but they're still there as like a figure. So this means that there is an established figure, but you just don't take the risk of them being bad. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's a very like positive thing, you know?
Yeah.
I really like the structure of Britain's political system, I think.
Yeah, well, they still have to worry about like a good, but still, they're still struggling with getting the parliament together. So I think their parliament system should be kind of reformed just a bit. But other than that, like it's going effectively. And the
Yeah.
reason and the fact that it's going effectively is why we still have the monarchy today in Britain.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
we don't in America.
Well,
The
yeah.
second the second like a monarch fails, everyone is just going to be there to like I guess kill him. Like both politically, like both figuratively and literally.
Because that's like the risk you take. It's all the reward and all the risk.
Yeah, so yeah. In America, I think it just in America it's like against this like it's against the spirit of America. Yeah, America is an idea, an ideal of like liberty and just like being free, you know?
Yeah.
We
I
just can't tolerate a king in America. We can't.
yeah, that's really true. I think yeah, like ever since George Washington turned down being a king, it kind of set the standard that like that's not a thing we do here.
Yeah, like that's why yeah, that's true. And it's so weird because it's not just like one nationality who like has this idea of liberty, but it's like when you say American, American is more like an ideology rather than an ethnicity.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying when you say that I'm an American, you're basically saying that I value liberty like so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, do you have anything other to mention maybe?
No, I think that was a really good like note to end on.
Yeah, and yeah, pretty good. So, one lesson to take away from this podcast is that absolute power to just one authoritarian figure can work sometimes, but mostly it just crumbles and at the end creates more chaos with the power vacuum created after the people rebel. So, yeah, I think that's a nice note to end on.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
So,
So
anyways,
so
great.
see you guys.
Yeah. Nice to see you again here. I'm talking to everyone here because even though we can't see you, we can still, read your comments, and they really encourage us. Be sure to, discuss the topic further down below. Uh,
Leave your opinions. We'll try to reply to as many as we can.
yeah, and we do. And yeah, if you have like a comment down there that has a link, please don't click it because those are usually scams and take you
Yeah.
to inappropriate websites. But yeah, that's true. That happened.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and then also follow us on Instagram. Yeah, thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.